Welcome to Lore of the Rings, where we explore the secret paths of Middle-earth and share the stories Tolkien never told. Before we dive in, take a moment to tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from and whether this tale has found you by day or by night. Beneath the stars of a moonless night, where the ancient road from Holland winds down into shadow, there lies a pool of water so black it seems to swallow light itself. No wind stirs its surface. No creature drinks from its edge. The very air around it holds its breath, as if the world itself has learned to fear what dwells below. This is the dark mere before the western gate of Moria, and on a night in the year 3019 of the Third Age, 9 travelers approached its shore, unaware that something ancient, something patient, something impossibly old had been waiting for this exact moment since before the moon first rose over Middle-earth. The Fellowship of the Ring stood at the water's edge, exhausted from their flight over Caradhras, desperate for shelter within the dwarf halls of Khazad-dûm. Gandalf spoke the words of opening. Merry and Pippin threw stones into the still water, watching the ripples spread and fade into darkness. And Frodo Baggins, bearer of the One Ring, stepped closer to the gate, drawn by the promise of sanctuary, unaware that every step he took sent tremors through dimensions unseen, vibrations that reached down into abyssal depths where something coiled and hungry stirred from its ancient dreaming. What happened next has been chronicled in the Red Book of Westmark, studied by scholars in Minas Tirith, and sung of in the halls of Rivendell. The Watcher in the water rose. It struck. It seized Frodo specifically, ignoring larger prey, bypassing warriors and wizards alike, reaching with deliberate, terrible purpose for the smallest member of the company. And though the Fellowship escaped, though Frodo was pulled from those grasping tentacles and the doors of Moria sealed behind them, a question has haunted Middle-earth's greatest minds ever since. Why Frodo? Why that moment? Why did a creature that might have slumbered for centuries more choose that precise instant to reveal itself? The answer, when we trace the threads of Tolkien's vast legendarium, when we examine his letters and the deeper implications woven throughout his mythology, is both terrible and inevitable. The Watcher wasn't hunting. It was waiting. And what it waited for was the ring. Because in Middle-earth, nothing ancient wakes without a purpose. And something in that water knew Frodo was coming. To understand the Watcher's attack, we must first understand the world Tolkien created. A world where nothing is random, where every shadow has a history, and where the oldest evils are often the least understood. In his letters, particularly letter 144 written to Naomi Mitchison, Tolkien speaks of creatures in Middle-earth that exist outside the hierarchies of good and evil as mortals understand them. He writes of things that were present before Morgoth's corruption, entities woven from discord in the music of the Aenir itself, fragments of chaos given form in the depths of the world. When Gandalf falls with the Balrog into the abyss beneath Khazad-dûm, he speaks afterward of pursuing his enemy through tunnels, gnawed by nameless things in the foundations of stone. Not orcs. Not creatures of Morgoth's deliberate making. Nameless things, entities so ancient, so fundamentally other, that even the wizards have no words for them. The narrator of The Lord of the Rings tells us directly, there are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. This is not merely atmospheric writing. This is Tolkien establishing a cosmological framework where the deepest darkness predates even the first rebellion of the Aenir. The Watcher in the water belongs to this category of being. It is not a servant of Sauron. The Dark Lord commands no loyalty from such creatures. It is not a spawn of Morgoth in the traditional sense, though it may bear the stain of his corruption. It is something else entirely. A remnant of the Elder Darkness, a thing that existed before the sun and moon were set in their courses, before the firstborn children of Iluvatar opened their eyes beneath the stars. And such things do not act without cause. When we examine Tolkien's unpublished writings, particularly his philosophical essays on the nature of evil in Arda, we find a recurring theme: power leaves echoes. The forging of the rings of power, especially the One Ring, was not merely a physical act, but a metaphysical rupture. Sauron poured so much of his essential being into that golden band that it became a beacon in the unseen world, a signal that resonated through the fabric of reality itself. The Nazgul could sense it. Sauron could feel its movement like a pulse in his own flesh. And we are told explicitly that Gollum was drawn to it, that the ring called to him across hundreds of miles of tunnels beneath the misty mountains. If the ring could call to a corrupted hobbit in the darkness of the Goblin Deeps, what else might it call to in the forgotten places of the world? What other ancient hungers might stir at the sound of its voice? This is not speculation. This is extrapolation from Tolkien's own established mechanics of how the One Ring functions within his secondary world. The ring is not passive. It seeks to return to its master, yes, but in doing so, it broadcasts its presence to any being sensitive enough to perceive it. And the older the being, the deeper its connection to the primordial forces of Arda, the more likely it would be to sense that call. And when we trace these threads back to the dark mirror outside Moria, the Watcher's attack doesn't look random anymore. It looks inevitable. But let us step back further still, to the very creation of that Black Lake, for even the geography of this place tells a story of corruption and decline that begins long before the Fellowship's arrival. The mere before Moria's western gate was not always there. In the days of Khazad-dûm's glory, when Durin's folk delved in prosperity and friendship with the elves of a region, the Suranan, the gate stream, flowed clear and bright from the mountains, joining with other waters to form a pleasant approach to the doors of Durin. Travelers came and went freely. The threshold between the surface world and the deeps was a place of commerce, of craft, of songs exchanged between dwarf and elf under open sky. But in the year 1980, one of the Third Age, everything changed. The dwarves, delving too greedily and too deep beneath Berezanbar, awakened something that had lain hidden since the making of the mountains themselves. Durin's bane, a Balrog of Morgoth, a demon of flame and shadow that had fled into the depths of the earth at the end of the First Age and slumbered there for more than 5,000 years. The Balrog rose. It slew King Durin Vi and then his son Nain 1 year later. The dwarves fled their ancestral home, and Khazad-dûm became Moria, the Black Pit. In the years that followed, the western approach fell into ruin. The Suranan's flow was deliberately blocked, whether by orcs, by the collapse of the ancient waterworks, or by some darker agency, we do not know. The stream backed up, forming a stagnant pool where once there had been clear running water. Trees that had grown along the roadside were drowned, becoming twisted, pale skeletons beneath the surface. The very character of the place transformed from welcome threshold to warning. Turn back, this place is forsaken. And here is where the first threads of deeper mystery begin to interweave. The timeline of the mirror's creation aligns almost perfectly with the awakening of Durin's bane. One ancient evil stirs in the deeps. Shortly thereafter, a pool forms at the western entrance, and something takes up residence in that pool. Something that had not been there before. Something that perhaps was drawn upward from even deeper places by the awakening of the Balrog, as if the stirring of one primordial power created ripples that disturbed others in their long dreaming. Tolkien was meticulous about such connections. In his mythology, great events have consequences that echo through both time and geography. The breaking of Thangorodrim at the end of the First Age sent shockwaves through the foundation of Middle-earth. The forging of the Rings of Power altered the invisible architecture of Arda. Is it so unreasonable to suggest that when a Balrog, a corrupted Maya, a being of immense spiritual power, woke from millennia of slumber, it might create reverberations in the deep places, disturbances that other ancient things would feel and respond to? The evidence suggests something even more unsettling. The Watcher may have been drawn to Moria specifically because of what now dwelt within it, like calling to like across the darkness, shadow recognizing shadow. And if the Watcher came to the mere because it sensed the Balrog's presence, then it had been there, waiting in those black waters, for over 1,000 years by the time the Fellowship arrived. 1,000 years of patience, 1,000 years of hunger, 1,000 years of sensing the currents of power that flowed through Middle-earth, learning the taste of magic and malice that passed above and below. And then, on a moonless night in early January of 3019, something changed. Something new approached the water's edge. Something that sang with a power the Watcher had never felt before. A resonance in the unseen world so profound that it cut through a millennium of patient waiting like a knife through silk. The ring had come to Moria. And when the waters rose, something rose with them. Something that sensed the One Ring pass like a whisper through stone. To understand what the Watcher truly is, we must venture into the deepest and most speculative reaches of Tolkien's cosmology, to the time before time, to the music of the Aenir itself. In the beginning, Tolkien tells us there was Eru Ilúvatar, the One, and the Aenir, the holy ones born of his thought. Ilúvatar proposed to them 3 great themes, and from their music, reality itself was woven. But Melkor, mightiest of the Aenir, sought to create his own melodies, to add his own thoughts to the creation, and his discord introduced themes of chaos and cold and darkness into the fabric of what would become Arda. Most of the Aenir who followed Melkor into his rebellion became identifiable servants. The Balrogs, corrupted Maiar who took forms of fire and shadow. Sauron, who would become the Dark Lord of the Second and Third Ages. Others who took shapes as dragons, as werewolves, as various servants of darkness. But Tolkien hints at something else, at fragmentary spirits, echoes of discord that never fully took coherent form, that existed in the cracks and abysses of creation, neither fully real nor entirely spiritual, predating the systematic corruption that Morgoth would later impose upon the world. In his Asanwakenta, Tolkien discusses how certain beings can exist in states between full incarnation and pure spirit, and how the boundaries between the material and immaterial were more fluid in the elder days. The Watcher may be such a being, neither fish nor spirit, neither fully of the water nor entirely separate from it, a thing that exists in the liminal space between states of being. There are 3 primary theories about the Watcher's true origin, and each reveals something different about the nature of ancient evil in Middle-earth. The first theory, the Watcher is a corrupted Maya, perhaps one of the spirits of water that Ulmo, Lord of Waters, brought into Arda to shape the seas and rivers. In Tolkien's cosmology, not all Maiar who were corrupted by Morgoth became Balrogs. Some took other forms, adapted to different elements and purposes. If the Watcher is indeed a fallen water spirit, it would explain its power, its longevity, and its sensitivity to the ring. Maiar can perceive things in the unseen world far more clearly than incarnate beings. This theory carries with it a terrible sadness. That something once beautiful, once part of the music of water and life, was twisted into a tentacled horror lurking in stagnant darkness, its original purpose utterly corrupted, remembering perhaps only dimly that it once served a different master under sunlit waves. The second theory. The Watcher is a creature of the void, one of the nameless things that Gandalf mentions. These entities were never truly part of Eru's design, but rather fragments of uncreation, pockets of chaos that resisted the ordering music of the Aenir. They gnaw at the roots of mountains not from hunger, but from a fundamental opposition to form itself, to the very concept of ordered existence. If the Watcher is such a being, then its attack on Frodo takes on a different character, not hunger or malice in any comprehensible sense, but rather an instinctive rejection of the ring, which is itself a supreme act of ordering and domination imposed upon reality. The ring seeks to control, to bind, to order all wills to itself. A creature of primordial chaos might strike at such an artifact not to claim it, but to destroy it, to silence the terrible harmony it imposes upon the world. The third theory. The Watcher is a spawn of Ungoliant's brood, descended from the eldest and most terrible of spiders, she who drained the light from the 2 trees of Valinor, and whose hunger was so profound that she eventually attempted to devour Morgoth himself. Ungoliant disappeared into the forgotten south of the world, where it is said she eventually consumed herself in her insatiable hunger, but not before spawning countless offspring, including Shelob and others unnamed. If the Watcher descends from this lineage, it would be a creature of devouring darkness, drawn to sources of power not to serve them, but to consume them, to feed an endless, gnawing emptiness that can never be filled. This theory explains the Watcher's tentacles, its dwelling in darkness, and most crucially, its apparent focus on Frodo. For Ungoliant could sense the light of the Silmarils from vast distances, drawn to their radiance like a moth to flame, and her descendants might similarly perceive the ring's power, hungering to devour it, to fill for even one moment the void within. Each of these possibilities is supported by different elements in Tolkien's texts, and each is deliberately left unresolved. Tolkien himself rarely provided definitive answers about such creatures, preferring to maintain the mystery, the sense that Middle-earth contains depths that even its chroniclers cannot fully plumb. But whichever truth we choose, corrupted Maya, thing of the void, or spawn of Ungoliant, one fact remains constant. The Watcher's malice predates the Fellowship by ages uncounted. Its presence in that mere was not coincidental. Its hunger was not random. And its attack, when it finally came, was anything but blind. The One Ring is more than an object. It is more than gold, more than a band of metal, however cunningly wrought. Sauron poured so much of his native power into its forging that it became, in essence, a portion of his very being given external form. To understand how the Watcher might have sensed it, we must understand the metaphysics of the ring itself, how it exists simultaneously in the material world and in the unseen realm that Frodo glimpses when he wears it, the Wraith world where the Nazgul appear as they truly are, where the spiritual architecture of Middle-earth becomes visible. Throughout The Lord of the Rings, we see evidence that the ring actively calls to certain beings. Boromir in Rivendell speaks of dreams that drew him northward, dreams that began, we later understand, when the ring began its journey toward Rivendell in Frodo's keeping. Gollum, in the Misty Mountains, was pulled toward the ring across vast distances, following its trail with an accuracy no mere tracking skill could explain. The Nazgul sense it most powerfully of all, able to perceive its presence even when Frodo does not wear it, drawn to him like iron to a lodestone. But the ring's call is not indiscriminate. It reaches out most strongly to those with the capacity to perceive power, to those already touched by darkness or dwelling in shadow, to those whose spirits are, in some way, aligned with the frequencies of domination and malice that Sauron wove into its creation. The ring does not call to Tom Bombadil, to Treebeard, to the Eagles, beings whose nature is fundamentally other to the power dynamics the ring represents. But it does call to men who desire strength, to creatures who dwell in darkness, to ancient things whose existence has already been shaped by corruption or hunger, or the long echoes of Morgoth's discord. The Watcher, by any of our three theories, would be exquisitely sensitive to such a call. If it is a corrupted Maya, it would perceive the ring in the same way Gandalf and Galadriel do, as a terrible temptation, a concentration of power that calls to the power within them. If it is a thing of the void, it would sense the ring as an anomaly in reality, a focal point of imposed order that draws attention through its very wrongness. If it is of Ungoliant's spawn, it would feel the ring as Shelob later does, as prey of surpassing value, a feast beyond imagining. Consider the timeline. The Fellowship left Rivendell on December 25th, 3018. They attempted to cross Caradhras in early January and were forced to turn back. They approached Moria on approximately January 13th, 3019. For nearly 3 weeks, Frodo had been carrying the ring through the wilderness, moving generally southward, approaching the Misty Mountains. For 3 weeks, any creature sensitive to the ring's presence might have felt it drawing nearer, a tremor in the unseen world growing stronger day by day, until finally it arrived at the very doorstep of Moria. And this is where the evidence becomes compelling. According to the account in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Watcher had been in the Mere for some time. The dead trees beneath the water, the stagnant condition of the pool, everything suggests it was not a newcomer. Yet there is no record of it attacking anyone else. The dwarves who fled Moria 1,000 years before make no mention of it. Gandalf, who had passed through Moria in the past, seems unaware of its presence until it strikes. The creature had been there, dormant or at least quiescent, for years if not decades or centuries, until the night Frodo arrived. One could argue this is coincidence. One could suggest the Watcher simply happened to be active that night, that it attacks anyone who approaches regardless of who they are. But Tolkien does not write coincidences, not in matters of such significance. And the manner of the attack itself argues against random hunger. The Watcher does not emerge as soon as the Fellowship approaches. It waits. Aragorn senses something. He speaks of feeling watched as they search for the door. The water lies still, patient. Only when Gandalf finally speaks the word of opening, when the doors of Durin begin to shine with their own light, when Frodo steps closer to the threshold, does the Watcher strike. And even then, its tentacles do not thrash wildly. They do not grab at the nearest target. They reach, with terrible precision, for Frodo specifically. This is not the behavior of a simple predator. This is the behavior of something that has been waiting, watching, sensing, and finally recognizing its moment. The ring had drawn close enough. The wards and protections around the Fellowship, Gandalf's presence, the blessing of Elrond, whatever subtle defenses surrounded the company, had thinned enough at this threshold place. And the Watcher, whether from hunger or hatred or some imperative written into its very being, struck at the source of the disturbance it had been feeling for days or weeks. It struck at the ring-bearer, and something in those depths recognized the ring-bearer as a prize worth revealing itself for. Let us return to that night, to the dark mere, and reconstruct the scene with the full weight of what we now understand. The Fellowship stands at the water's edge, exhausted and desperate. Gandalf moves along the cliff face, searching for the door, speaking aloud the old passwords of friendship between dwarf and elf. Behind them, the black water lies perfectly still, its surface like dark glass, reflecting nothing. Merry and Pippin, restless and nervous, pick up stones and throw them into the pool. The splashes echo strangely in the confined space. The ripples spread outward and fade, and nothing responds. But beneath the surface, something is stirring now, roused from ancient contemplation by the presence of power unlike anything it has sensed in 1,000 years. The Watcher rises from the depths, tentacles unfurling like the petals of some nightmarish flower, but it does not break the surface. Not yet. It waits, hovering just below the boundary between water and air, sensing the figures on the shore. 9 walkers. It can feel them, differentiate them. One burns with inner fire, old power, ancient authority, the smell of smoke and starlight. A wizard, dangerous. 4 small ones cluster together, frightened but curious, the hobbits who threw stones. 2 larger forms, warriors both, carrying the scent of lineage and duty. Another small one, separate from the others, singing of age and sorrow and madness. And then, the ninth walker stands closest to the door, and from him radiates something that makes the water itself tremble. The Watcher has no eyes as mortal creatures understand them, but it perceives this figure with absolute clarity in the unseen world. He is small, fragile, mortal, but he carries a sun of dark fire bound into a circle of gold, a concentration of power so intense that it tears at the fabric of reality around it, marking him as clearly as if he burned with black flame. The ring-bearer. The Watcher's tentacles drift closer to the surface. Ancient instincts, ancient hungers stir. This is why it has waited. This is what the tremors in the deep earth have been warning of. The power that has been approaching from the north has finally arrived, and it is here, within reach, unprotected for just this moment as the wizard focuses his attention on the stone doors. Gandalf's voice rises. Melon, the elvish word for friend. The doors begin to glow with their own pale light, silver lines tracing out the symbols of Durin and Celebrimbor, the star of the House of Feanor, the crown of Durin. The ancient spell of opening activates. The doors start to swing silently inward on their hidden hinges, and Frodo, relieved and exhausted, steps forward toward the promise of shelter. The Watcher strikes. 20 tentacles erupt from the water simultaneously, moving with horrifying speed and precision. Some lash out at the hobbits near the edge, grabbing at ankles, creating chaos and confusion. But the main mass of the creature surges toward one target alone, Frodo Baggins. A thick, suckered arm wraps around his ankle with crushing force. Another coils around his waist. He is lifted into the air, dragged toward the water, toward the depths, toward the open mouth that waits below the surface, ringed with terrible teeth. Frodo screams. Sam hacks at the tentacle with his sword, and the blade bites deep, but the Watcher does not release its prize. It does not grab at Sam, though he is closer and more dangerous at this moment. It does not turn to face Aragorn and Boromir, who are rushing forward with weapons drawn. Every iota of the creature's attention is focused on Frodo, on pulling him down into the black water, on claiming the power it senses burning around him. This is not hunger. Hunger does not ignore larger, easier prey. Hunger does not target the most defended member of a group. Hunger does not strike with such absolute focus on a single individual who represents, objectively, the least amount of meat among the available targets. This is purpose. This is intention. This is a creature that has identified its true target and is willing to reveal itself, to expose itself to blades and fire, to risk everything for this one prize. Almost as if it had been waiting specifically for him. But here we must pause and consider a disturbing possibility, one that turns our understanding of the Watcher's attack on its head. We have been assuming that the Watcher sought to claim the ring, to devour it, to possess it in some way. But what if its purpose was something else entirely? What if, in striking at Frodo, the Watcher was not serving its own hunger, but acting, unknowingly or otherwise, in a larger pattern of opposition to Sauron's will? The Dark Tower wanted the ring returned. Sauron had spent thousands of years searching for it, sending his servants across Middle-earth, offering rewards, torturing captives, seeking any hint of the One Ring's location. His Nazgul were abroad specifically to find the ring and bring it back to Mordor. The Eye was searching, always searching, for the one thing that would restore his full power and make his victory inevitable. But the Watcher did not try to deliver the ring to Sauron. It tried to pull Frodo into the depths, into waters that likely connect to subterranean passages so deep and convoluted that no servant of the Dark Tower could follow. If the Watcher had succeeded, if Frodo had been dragged down into those abyssal halls, the ring would have been lost in a place where even Sauron's vast will could not reach. At least not easily, not quickly. This raises a profound question. Could the Watcher, in its alien way, have been acting against Sauron? In Tolkien's cosmology, evil is not monolithic. The servants of darkness do not automatically cooperate with one another. Morgoth and Ungoliant turned on each other when their goals diverged. Sauron and Saruman were rivals as much as allies. The Balrog of Moria served no master but its own ancient malice. Tolkien is explicit about this. The various evils of Middle-earth are united only in their opposition to good, but they have no loyalty to one another, no true fellowship, only temporary alignment of interests. If the Watcher is indeed one of the nameless things older than Morgoth's dominion, it might regard Sauron as an upstart, a lesser evil, a pretender to power. The true ancient horrors of Middle-earth, the Balrogs, the great worms of the north, Ungoliant's spawn, do not kneel to the Lord of the Rings. They coexist with his darkness, but they do not serve it. From this perspective, the Watcher's attack takes on a different character. Perhaps it sensed the ring and recognized it for what it was. Sauron's phylactery, his one hope of return to full power. And perhaps, operating on instincts born from eons of existence beneath the earth, it struck at that power not to claim it, but to keep it from its maker. Not to destroy the ring. Such a creature would likely lack the knowledge or means, but to sequester it, to drag it down into depths where even the Dark Lord's will could not penetrate, to lock it away in the ancient darkness where it might never again see light. This would make the Watcher an accidental ally of the free peoples, though one far more dangerous than helpful. Its success would not have saved Middle-earth. The ring would still exist, still corrupt the world by its presence, still call out across the ages. But it would have denied Sauron his prize, at least for the span of ages yet to come. Or perhaps the truth is darker still. Perhaps the Watcher sought to claim the ring not to keep it from Sauron, but to use it for its own unfathomable purposes. What would a nameless thing of the deep do with the One Ring? Could such a creature even wear it in any meaningful sense? Would the ring's power of domination function on a being that may not have a will as mortals and immortals understand it? These questions spiral into philosophical depths as dark as the mirror itself. What we can say with certainty is this: the Watcher acted with purpose, with specificity, with a focus that suggests intelligence rather than mere animal instinct. Whether that intelligence was mammalian cunning, spiritual awareness, or something entirely other, we cannot know. But it was there. The Watcher knew what it was reaching for. And for one terrible moment, it came within a tentacle's breadth of changing the course of the War of the Ring forever. For what stalks in the deep does not kneel to Sauron, but it may hate him enough to seize the ring to keep it from him. In Tolkien's work, thresholds matter. Doorways, bridges, rivers, the boundaries between light and dark. These are not merely geographical features, but metaphysical ones. Places where the structure of reality becomes thin, where the rules that govern one realm give way to the rules of another. The Fellowship's journey is full of such crossings. The ford of Bruinen, where Elrond's power turns back the Nazgul. The bridge of Khazad-dûm, where Gandalf makes his stand against the Balrog. The gates of Moria themselves, marked with spells of friendship and peace that once kept the ways between dwarf and elf open and safe. The dark mere before Moria's western entrance is one such threshold, a boundary between the surface world and the deeps, between the realm of light and air and the ancient darkness that exists below. The doors of Durin were built at this threshold deliberately, positioned at a place where the power of the elves and the craft of the dwarves could meet and mingle, where the magic of Celebrimbor could seal and protect the entrance against evils from without, but also, perhaps, against evils from within. The Watcher dwells at this threshold, in the water that lies precisely between the outer world and the entrance to the halls below. It is a creature of liminality, existing in the boundary space, neither fully in the mountain nor entirely outside it. And such creatures, in mythology and in Tolkien's work, often function as guardians, not in the sense of protectors of good, but as keepers of forbidden boundaries, as watchers, the name itself is telling, that mark the edge of places mortals should not go. Consider the pattern. Shelob dwells in the tunnels of Cirith Ungol, at the threshold between Gondor and Mordor, and all who would pass must contend with her. The Balrog of Moria was awakened when the dwarves delved too deep, crossing a boundary they should not have crossed. The Barrow-wights keep the borders of the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs, preventing travelers from passing through without trial. Tom Bombadil himself is in many ways a guardian of thresholds, though a benevolent one, master of his own boundaries, protecting the borders of his realm. The Watcher fits this pattern. It does not leave the water to pursue prey. It does not roam the mountainside seeking victims. It stays at the boundary in the dark mere, waiting for those who would cross the threshold. And when such travelers arrive, it responds, but not with equal force to all. It reacts proportionally to the significance of what approaches. Common travelers, if any still came this way, might never even know it was there. But when a wizard approaches, when warriors bearing ancient lineages come near, when most significantly, the One Ring itself arrives at the threshold, the Watcher's response becomes immediate and overwhelming. From this perspective, the attack on Frodo was not hunger or even malice in a personal sense. It was an instinctive territorial response, a guardian reflex triggered by the presence of a power that represented a fundamental violation of the boundary's integrity. The ring should not pass here. The ring brings with it the attention of the Dark Tower, brings war and searching eyes, brings disruption to the ancient, still darkness that the Watcher has kept for centuries. And so the Guardian strikes, not to claim or destroy, but simply to prevent the crossing, to maintain the boundary, to keep the threshold sealed. This reading is supported by what happens next. After seizing Frodo, after the Fellowship fights back and cuts at its tentacles, the Watcher does not pursue them into Moria. It does not reach through the doorway after them. Instead, it pulls back, and then, in an act of terrible deliberation, it tears down the doors themselves, bringing the cliff face crashing down, sealing the western entrance permanently. This is not the action of a frustrated predator losing its prey. This is the action of a guardian closing a gate that should never have been opened, re-establishing the boundary that was breached, ensuring that what was separate remains separate. The Fellowship escapes into Moria, but they can never leave by the way they came. The western threshold is sealed forever. The Watcher has done its work. The boundary is restored. And once again, the Black Watcher lies still and silent, patient and terrible, waiting for the next intrusion, which, given the Watcher's work that night, may never come. Thus the Watcher struck not at random, but as a keeper of forbidden borders reacting to a trespass. But let us now turn to the shadows of what might have been, to the dark possibilities that haunt the margins of the tale that was told. What if the Watcher had succeeded? What if Frodo's scream had been cut short by dark water closing over his head? What if those tentacles had pulled him down into the depths where even Gandalf's power could not reach, where no light had ever shone, where the waters connect to underground seas that have been dark since before the sun? Sam would have leaped after him, of course. Sam would have dove into that black water without a moment's hesitation, sword in hand, willing to die rather than abandon his master. And he would have died, drowned in darkness, pulled into depths where no hobbit could survive, lost in subterranean channels where bodies would never be found. Aragorn and Boromir would have followed, and perhaps they would have survived longer, but even their strength would eventually fail in that alien environment. Gandalf might have ventured deeper than any other, carrying light into places that had known only darkness. But even Gandalf could not breathe water, could not pursue into every crack and crevice of the drowned deeps. The ring would be lost, not destroyed. That requires the fires of Mount Doom and nothing less. But lost beyond recovery, sunk in abyssal halls, resting perhaps in the Watcher's lair, or washed into underground rivers that flow toward the sunless sea, or lying in some forgotten chamber of the drowned deeps where not even rumors go. Sauron would search. Oh, how he would search. The Nazgul would be sent to Moria, and they would tear apart every reachable passage, would scour the depths with their terrible perception. Sauron himself might turn his full attention to the misty mountains, might bend his will toward scouring every tunnel and every cave. But Moria is vast beyond imagining, and the waters beneath it descend into places even the dwarves never mapped. And the Watcher, if it still lived, if it kept the ring, would retreat into depths where even the Dark Lord's servants could not follow. The search could take years, decades, and all the while the West would be defenseless. Gondor would stand alone against Mordor's assault. Without the ring's destruction, without the quest that drew Sauron's attention away from his borders, the Dark Lord would be free to concentrate his full might on military conquest. The siege of Minas Tirith would come earlier, with greater force. There would be no desperate hope, no expectation of a miracle, only grim defense against inevitable doom. Perhaps Gondor would fall in the first year. Perhaps it would hold for 5 or 10, sustained by the valor of its people and the leadership of Aragorn. If Aragorn even survived the Watcher's attack, if he did not die in the dark water trying to save Frodo. Perhaps the elves would intervene more directly, bringing their hosts from Lothlorien and Rivendell to aid the failing kingdoms of men. But even elven swords could not stand forever against the full, undistracted might of Mordor. And Sauron would not need the ring to win, not against enemies already divided and despairing. The ring's importance to him was the restoration of his full power, but he was mighty enough without it to conquer Middle-earth if given time and freedom from distraction. With the ring lost beyond his reach, he might even count himself fortunate, for at least no enemy could use it against him. No Saruman or Gandalf could claim it and challenge him. Middle-earth would darken. The Fourth Age would be an age of shadow, not of men. The Shire would eventually be found and scoured, its people scattered or enslaved. The elves would dwindle and fail, their power broken without hope of renewal. The dwarves would retreat into their mountains and be forgotten. And in Mordor, Sauron would rule unchallenged, patient, and deathless, content to wait out the centuries until, perhaps, some shift in the earth or some working of fate brought his ring back to light. Unless something else happened first. Unless the Valar, seeing Middle-earth fall into irrecoverable darkness, intervened directly as they had not done since the drowning of Númenor. Unless Eru Ilúvatar himself, the one who stands beyond all the music, shaped a new theme that none could predict. But these are desperate hopes, the dreams of those who can see no other path to salvation. The simpler truth is this: if the Watcher had succeeded, if Frodo had been dragged into the deeps that night, the history of Middle-earth would have turned toward darkness almost certainly irrevocable. Not because the ring would be destroyed. It would not. But because it would be lost beyond use by either side. And in the resulting war of attrition, Sauron's patience and power would inevitably prevail. One small hobbit. One moment of desperate struggle. One wizard's spell cast in haste to blind the Watcher, one ranger's sword cutting through tentacles, one gardener's loyalty pulling his master back from the edge of darkness. These small acts in that moment were all that stood between the world that is recorded in the Red Book and a world lost to eternal night. In the end, the Fellowship escaped, but Middle-earth was a heartbeat from a very different history. And so we return, as all stories must, to the beginning and the ending. We return to the dark mere outside Moria, to the black water that lies still once more beneath uncaring stars. The Watcher has retreated into the depths. The doors of Durin lie broken and buried. The Surannon flows over broken stone, and the mere remains, patient and dark, as it has for 1,000 years and may for 1,000 more. The Fellowship passed. They entered Moria and faced terrors within that dwarfed even the Watcher's assault. The tomb of Balin, the drums in the deep, the bridge of Khazad-dûm where Gandalf fell into shadow. They went on to achieve what even the wise deemed impossible. The ring was destroyed, Sauron fell, and the Third Age came to an end. The Watcher's attack became a footnote in that greater tale, a brief moment of terror before the true darkness of Moria was revealed, overshadowed by later dangers, and eventually almost forgotten in the overwhelming narrative of what came after. But we who study these events with the benefit of hindsight, who have access to Tolkien's deeper lore and the patterns woven throughout his mythology, can see that night outside Moria for what it truly was. A convergence of powers ancient and immediate, a moment when the One Ring drew the attention of something that had existed before Sauron, before the Blue Mountains were raised, before perhaps even the first sunrise over Middle-earth. The Watcher was not random. Its presence at Moria was not coincidence. Its attack on Frodo was not mere hunger or territorial instinct or simple malice. It was the response of something fundamentally connected to the deep fabric of Arda, something woven from the discord in the music itself, responding to the presence of the ring in the only way its alien nature permitted. Whether it sought to claim the ring for purposes unknowable, or to deny it to Sauron, or to protect its threshold against the disruption the ring represented, or simply acted from instincts laid down before the concept of purpose existed, we cannot say for certain. What we can say is this: Frodo Baggins stood at the edge of that black water, bearing a power that sang through the unseen world like a clarion call to everything old and dark and hungry in Middle-earth. And something beneath those still waters heard that call and responded with the full force of its ancient being, rising from depths where it had rested since the world was young, driven by impulses we can barely imagine, let alone understand, striking with precision and purpose at the one small figure who mattered most. For one heartbeat of eternity, the fate of the world hung on the question of whether tentacles could pull a hobbit into dark water. For one crystallized moment, the entire vast machinery of Tolkien's epic, the songs of the Aenir, the wars of the First Age, the forging of the rings, the long defeat of the elves, the rising shadow of Mordor, all of it, balanced on the edge of that mirror, waiting to see which way the fall would come. And in that moment, loyalty proved stronger than ancient hunger. Light, however small, proved sufficient against darkness, however deep. And the smallest person, with the help of his friends, survived what might have been his ending and went on to become the savior of all. But the Watcher does not know this. The Watcher does not understand concepts like heroism or quest or destiny. It knows only its depths, its darkness, its patient existence at the threshold between worlds. It felt something powerful approach. It rose to seize it. It failed. It retreated. And now it rests once more in those black waters, tentacles coiled in the silt, awareness spreading through the dark mirror like ripples on still water, waiting. Because there are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world. There are creatures that existed before the sun, that will exist long after the last kingdoms of men have fallen to dust. There are guardians of thresholds that should not be crossed, watchers of boundaries between the world of light and the ancient darkness below. And though the ring is destroyed, though Sauron has fallen, though the Third Age has passed into the Fourth and may one day pass into the Fifth and beyond, these things remain. They do not forget. They do not change. They simply wait, patient as stone, still as dark water, dwelling in their appointed places until the world ends or until something of sufficient significance approaches once more. And to this day, beneath those dead waters at the western foot of Moria, beneath the rubble of the broken doors and the drowned trees and the silent stones, Something remembers the ring bearer. Something waits still. And if you were to stand at that mere on a moonless night, if you were to look into those black waters and feel the oppressive weight of ancient awareness pressing down from the darkness above and rising up from the depths below, you might understand why no traveler goes that way anymore. Why the road to Moria's western gate is abandoned and lost. Why even orcs who fear little avoid those dark waters. Because the Watcher is still there. And it is still waiting. It is always waiting. Dear listener, this story ends, but many await. Subscribe so no tale escapes you.